Hello, everyone. Hi. Welcome. Thank you so much for choosing this talk. It's a real honor to be speaking here at DroidCon San Francisco. My name is Odin, and I work as an Android developer at DNB Bank. And this is my talk, building a component library in Compose for a large banking application. So first off, I wanted to just take a quick sidebar, like to say what you can expect from this talk and what this talk actually is. So this talk is an opinionated way that made Compose work for us, and it's not meant as a blueprint project for other projects to copy around, but it's important to remember that your journey will probably be a bit different from ours. So first off, I want to go through like the agenda today. Firstly, I will start talking a bit about who actually DNB Bank is. Then I will go through how we started our Jetpack Compose initiative. And then we have our own custom design system called Euphemia Design in DNB Bank, which is used all across our bank. I will go a bit through like how we architecture that design system, and then I will go through a section called building a component library in Compose. And then when you build your component library, or we build our component library, then we wanted to make sure that we deliver a component which actually could be shipped from a bank side. So I have a section called making sure we deliver components with banking level quality. Then I will go through some of our release and dependency management of this library, and then I will share some key learnings and takeaways from our experience with this. So firstly, who is DNB Bank? DNB Bank is a bank in Norway, and is located in Norway, Europe. And we help millions of people transfer billions of Norwegian kroners every day. We work both within the private and business market of banks, and we have offices all around the world. We are considered the most used mobile bank in Norway, and we provide a lot of different services within mobile banking. For instance, we provide like day-to-day mobile banking services and fund trading services. We have our own fund and equity trading platform. We also provide like pension services and loan services and a lot more. Currently, we are having 3 native applications and some web applications that we're maintaining. And firstly, we have what we call our mobile bank, which is our customers do day-to-day mobile banking, like transferring funds and so on. Then we have an application called Spare, which is our fund and equity trading platform. Then we have Bedrift, which is our corporate trading application. Here is like a small overview of how like the screens look initially when you open the application. So on the left side, you have the Bedrifts app, and in the center, you have the Spare application. And then in the right side, you have the mobile banking application. And as a lot of other companies do these days, especially within the banking, I feel like, we have something called loyalty programs. Loyalty programs is basically something that defines which type of user you are in the application, and then the application will be different for you. So we have, for instance, on the right side, we have something called private banking, which is if you have a lot more money than other people. And then in the middle on the right, the gold one is like our Saga program. And this is if you don't have that much money, but you have a lot more money than someone else. And then we have some Pride teams. So we have a lot of these different teams. And of course, they need to also work in dark mode, right? We have a lot of these different teams, but how do you actually make like a system that can be scalable and you can use this across your application? So first off, I wanted to talk a little bit about how we started our Jetpack Compose initiative in DNB Bank. So this started early last year for us, and we asked ourselves, like, how can our UI teams develop UI faster? And we went to a lot of different conferences, and we saw a lot of different talks, and we saw a lot from Google, Airbnb, and all of these huge firms, which were talking very highly about Compose. And they also explained a lot, like how this actually makes your UI development very much faster. So the question quickly became more like, how can we actually start using Compose in our applications? So for us, this was a kind of a change of mindset. You have a lot more like the declarative programming style, which our developers were not that used to. And for that, we also held some workshops with our teams who were going to adapt Compose. And we did very heavy code review because in Compose there is a lot of easy mistakes that you can make. And we wanted to avoid that hardly. So we also had two of our applications were using XML with Epoxy, which is a library from Airbnb. Which you might have used. Is it helps you manage your recycler views very hardly. And then for us, that kind of meant that us also induced some of the state management for our apps. So they had some of the unidirectional data flow a bit inside. So some of the developers kind of had that principle in mind. So it was a bit easier for them to adopt Compose. And we also had a lot of different technical depths. We had a monolithic repository, but in the monolithic repository they have also different architecture types. So we had one application which had single activity architecture, and then we had another application with multiple activity architecture. So you can imagine when you have shared feature modules between those, that for instance navigation was pretty hard to figure out. And then we had one app which was not part of the monolithic repository at all. But they all used one design system. And so in DMB, we have a design system that we call Euphemia Design. And this is used everywhere. And it's an open source design system that you can find at euphemia.dmb.no. Here you can see all about the licenses and how it is how it's open source, how you can be in compliance with Euphemia. And we require all our products to be in compliance with Euphemia in order for them to be shipped. So, as I said, it's an open source design system. It's shared between web, iOS, and Android. And it's also set up to follow the industry regulatory standards for accessibility, which we are bound by law in Norway to follow. And we can risk hefty fines if we do not follow these standards. So also we can risk being in the newspapers, which we do not want. Yeah, this library is mainly developed by a group of designers and developers who are maintaining this. But when we started our Compose initiative, we were asking how can we implement our platform-specific version of Euphemia in Compose? So first off, I wanted to take kind of a sidebar here to show when I talk about Compose, I mean Compose UI, not the compiler side of Compose. And Compose UI has a library called Compose UI, which has the Canvas API, for instance, in it. And then you have something called Compose Foundation, which is where you have your box and your columns and all of that, and it uses the Compose UI. And then you have Compose Material. Compose Material is an opinionated way from Google to make a design system, which is using Compose Foundation. So if you're going to approach this, you can either you can use Material out of the box if you don't need a design system. But you can also make your own based on Compose Foundation, and that's fine as well. But for us, we needed to be in compliance with Euphemia, and that was key for us. So what we did in the start was that we tried to wrap Material components. And the reason we did that was that wrapping Material components made it really easy for us to start, because we knew that all of these components were well tested. And it was also quite close to what our designers had made our internal version of, platform-specific version of Euphemia. So that helped a lot. So we had an internal platform-specific version of Euphemia, and we had Vue and Compose support in this library. But it was not quite one-to-one with Material directly. There was some changes. So for instance, our color attributes and our typography attributes were a bit different. And some of the components were also a bit different. So if we take a look at the architectural diagram that we have here, here we had our apps depending directly on Euphemia. If we take a look into our Euphemia library, it contained a lot of different library modules, but I will go through two of them that we had in here. So we had one called Teaming and one called Atoms. And as I said in the start, we had all of these different teams in our apps, which has a lot of set of colors that we needed to support in our applications. And we did this with something called color palettes, which was like defining a set of all of these colors in these different teams. And since we had a lot of different configurations, we had actually 30 different color palettes in our apps. So how did we actually do that? So we had our own color class, which we needed to provide through a color palette. So we had something like this. We had a color class, which set our color attributes. For instance, interaction color is not like a material thing. That's a Euphemia version of saying like your primary color, or yeah. So, and then in here we made like these properties for instance, for light Euphemia color, where we actually set those to hexadecimal values that we define. Like sea green is something we defined as like our primary color for this team. And then for each of those, we defined like 30 different color palettes. For typography, we also needed to provide those through the team. And we needed a custom class that could hold like our composed text styles. So we did a very similar thing. We had like a class like this. And then we provided our attributes through this class. Also, our design system had something called shapes. It's not every design system that has shapes, but we needed to provide those through the team as well. So we made like a class with something like this, which just contained the properties for the different shapes. So they were very easy to just reference out of the box like this. But then how do we actually provide this through the team, right? So if you're going to make your own team in Compose, you will most likely need to make a function with something like this. Here, this is our custom function, which is taking like an overlay type and a loyalty program. These were also like configurable for the developer side. And loyalty program was something specific for our team as well, and overlay type as well. It's basically if you want to use a form or something like that, then we require them to look a little bit different. And then in the end, you can see that we are providing the content in a composable lambda. So it means that you actually need to wrap your components with this team in the parent composable. So then in this function, we're using composition local provider to provide the correct colors through all of this. And then in the end, we're wrapping material teams so that we know that if we are actually using a material component, it will actually inject the correct color in the correct component as we want it. And as you see here, we also have like this get material colors and provide typography. These were functions that are used just to map the color attributes and typography attributes to material color attributes, so that when it's being used in material, it's very easy to, like, material can just use them out of the box then. A cool animation. So that makes it easy for us when we use composition local provider to make an object like this, so that we can easily reference these colors and typography attributes just in our composables. So if you're going to make like a text composable and you want to change the style to what we had like in our Figma, to body emphasize or text primary, then you can just reference it like this. Or if you want to use material, then you just use material team and it will also work. So in this Euphemia library, we also have something called atoms. Atoms was what we defined as like the most fundamental building blocks in our application. It could be something, for instance, like a button, a chip, a checkbox, or something very small like that. And in our design system, this had its own Figma instance. And designers, they needed approval to add or remove atoms or change them. And these were also specific for each platform, so meaning that like iOS has their own set of atoms and web has their own, and we had our own set of atoms as well. So we saw that we were providing like a design system for 3 different apps, and we have a lot of like internal libraries that also uses this design system. So and all of these applications had a lot of similar components. And for us, it was key to keep those components consistent through the DMB domain itself. So we wanted to build a component library that could like kind of abstract away what we wanted and help the developers do that as well. So then what actually is a component library, right? If I go back to the architectural diagram that I showed in the start, we had our apps depending on Euphemia directly like this. So what I mean by a component library for us was just an abstraction between Euphemia and this component and these applications. So for instance, if you have something called like an atom like this, and it was used in a broader context, which the designers here called molecule, and some designers might have called this an organism, but our designers call this a molecule at least. So this could be something that was in this library. For instance, we had a lot of these cards where, for instance, in our insurance pages for doing some certain type of actions. And we quickly realized that this was just like, it could be abstracted into like an illustration, a title, description, and a button, right? So we could make an API which was like, we call this card promo. I know naming is hard, but yeah, like a composable function that took like title, description, illustration drawable, but it's a drawable data. We call like that was a class which just had like the image reference and the content description. But in Compose, there is also something called slot APIs. This meant that we could actually make the same with just like using composable slot injection instead. So here you can see like we use the illustration as a composable, and the button could be a composable, or text content could be a composable. And it could also be abstracted away even easier with just like one composable inject. And we found that like slot APIs have a lot of different that worked great for us at least. And what it does is that it decreases the API surface. As you could see, like we reduced the amount of arguments that the user of this library had to kind of relate to. It also reduces the coupling between components, which was key for us to build this library. We also found that in the start that this could become a bit too flexible, because we kind of wanted it to be very consistent through our DMB domain. And we didn't want the users to just inject whatever into these composables. So in the start, we were very hesitant about using this, but we're leaning more and more towards using this now. So the question for us became like, where do we actually draw the line for this, right? And what is a domain-specific versus a generic component in this library? And should we only depend on this library and not be able to depend on the Euphemia atoms as well? These were discussions that we had. And we had to go back to our roots and find like, there's no solution that fits all of these components. And our mission was to help the developers. It was not to gatekeep them from doing the designs that their designer had said that they needed in the applications. But at the same time, we didn't want like the developers to reinvent the wheel every time they wanted to make a component. We also found a very interesting thing was that applications who were depending only on this component library and not the Euphemia atoms, they actually forced like their domain-specific information into this library. And we did not want to expose that information through the other apps as well. So if we go back to the architectural diagram that we had here, this quickly became more like this. And then also all of these apps were modularized, and they contained their domain-specific Compose code as well. As well for the atoms and the component library, this also had their own Figma instance. And for us, new components needed like a review from the designers and the community. Sorry. And that was very key for us. But then when we had like built our component library, we actually wanted to ship this to production. And we, as a bank, we had like a lot of different things that we needed to be compliant with. So then we asked ourselves, like, how can we actually ship components which had banking level quality? So for us, at first at least, we found that like Compose and material helps us a lot out of the box. For instance, one of the things it does is that it enforces touch size by default. So that means like the developers needs to go through extreme lengths to actually go past that to have less touch size than like was required from the accessibility standpoint. Also, one thing is that content description is required from the API side in Compose, which is super nice for us because I don't know if you have used the view system a lot, but there you will get like a lint warning, but here you will get like a compile time error if you fail to add this. As I said in the start, we also have like a lot of different permutations for our applications, and some of the requirements we are from VCAG 2.0 is that we need to, for instance, if the user are using 2x font and 2x display, we need to be able to have our component displayed in this type of configuration without losing any information. We also need our components to work in both dark mode, light mode, and all of these loyalty programs, right? One of the things that we used was a library from Airbnb called Showcase. And this helps us a lot. This is using KSP, which is an annotation processor. And it basically means that you can add, if you have like a preview or a function that you can add like the @showcase composable to, then it will generate an APK where you can browse your components in all of these type of configurations that you want. This also helps us with seeing which type of components that we have in this library. And so that like the developers don't like reinvent the wheel every time they want to like add a component here. So for instance, we had like a function like this, card promo, and if we wanted to make this into our APK, you could just add like showcase composable or preview to this, and then you can make like a preview like this, and it will add it to this APK. Here you can also add something called preview parameter provider, which we set to our loyalty program. This means that you will get like a page with all of these different loyalty programs as well. So here is a quick demonstration of how this looks in this sample app. And as you can see, we have our card promo on the left side, and it works in 2x font, but it doesn't look good. But we're not losing any information at least, which was our requirement. So if you want to check out this library, you can scan this QR code. I also have like a page in the end with all of these QR codes, so if you miss them, don't worry. We also use Paparazzi a lot for screenshot testing or configuration permutations. And we require all of our components to be tested with Paparazzi. And this can also be integrated well with Showcase if you want to auto-generate Paparazzi's screenshot tests for each of your preview functions. We also did an internal POC on Paparazzi plus accessibility, and I saw that in Paparazzi 1.30 they have added this, which is really cool. It means that you can screenshot test your semantic node tree, and they have something called an accessibility render extension. So if you have like a screenshot test like this, for instance, where you have like a class of your screenshot test, and you do like your unit test like this, and then you have a rule which references like a Paparazzi object. This Paparazzi object has like a set of render extensions that you can set, and here they have added like a class called accessibility render extension. So which if you like initialize this, it will actually generate like a golden image like this. So here you can see our component on the left side. And then you can see like on the right side is actually our accessibility information. So meaning that like if you're going to do like a refactoring of this component, we can make sure that we actually not lose any of this information, which is really nice. So if you want to check out Paparazzi, here is also like the QR code for this. Maybe if you watched Google I/O this year, they announced something called locally hosted preview screenshot testing if you use AGP 8.2 and above. And I'm really excited about using this. This, I think, integrates well with preview, and it's a great option if you want to use that instead of Showcase and Paparazzi. What it does is that it takes all of your preview functions, and then it generates golden image for that, and you can do screenshot testing based on this. I really urge you to watch this video as well. This was cool from Google I/O if you want to go more into detail. Yeah, I really like that video. We also use Robolectric heavily for UI testing. And this is great because it can run our UI test without spinning up an emulator. It can just run on the JVM. So on our CI, it reduces our CI time a lot, which is very nice for our library, I think. Also, when we do development, we use previews a lot for testing all of these configuration types that we have. Maybe if you have gone into if you have like a preview function like this, maybe you have control-clicked into the preview annotation and checked out how that actually looks. And you can see that it has a lot of arguments that you can actually set. For instance, you can set like the locale of the preview. You can set the font scale, UI mode, the device that it's supposed to look like. All of these things are things that you can configure yourself in your previews. So if I, for instance, want to have like the card promo preview, and then I want to see it in dark mode but with 2x font display, I can just add like a preview like this, which is really nice. And also, if you've seen into the preview annotation, it's annotated with @repeatable as well. So it basically means that you can stack these like this, and it will just generate two previews just side by side, which is super nice. Also, taking this one step further is that you can make your own annotation like this, which is called multi-previews. So you can add this stack of previews to your own annotation, and then you can use this throughout the app, and it will do the same for this preview. So we use that a lot. As you can see in our repository, we have like a bunch of these previews because everyone has used them during development, and I really like this feature of in Compose. Also, one thing that we also found interesting is like, how do we ensure code quality in a library like this? As I said in the beginning, in Compose, there is a lot of easy mistakes that you can make. And we found that static code checks, that helps us a lot on the way. And there is this library from Twitter, which is called Jetpack Compose Rules, which is really nice. It's basically a linter for some of the rules in Compose some of the mistakes in Compose that you can make. I think this is forked because of the people that quit from Twitter, so they're maintaining this fork instead. And I also know that Slack has the same, like some similar library as well. And this supports both detect and KT-lint, which is super nice. So one of the rules that it would say violate is, for instance, like if you have something like this, you have like an input text field, and then you have like your material text field here, which takes like, you have like a text state with set to a mutable state of, and then when the value changes, it will update this text. But in Compose, you have something called recomposition. So here you will have like a rule violation, because every time this composable will recompose, it will actually set it to a new instance of this mutable state of. So what you can do is that you can wrap it with a remember function, right? And then it will remember it through the recomposition phase. And then it will actually update the text and work like you expect. But this is a really easy mistake. I've done this a couple of times myself, to be honest. And it's really nice that this linter will actually pick up on this. So also, how do we do release and dependency management of this library? For us, we have a locally hosted Nexus instance, which we push our library to. We also do dev releases after we merge code. And then for testing during development, we use something called local substitution. And we also publish to Maven local. And we use showcase a lot and previews. So what is actually local substitution? So if you want to test a library locally in your application, you can do something like this in your project. You can, in your settings Gradle file, you can add this include build, which will include like your folder where you had your library locally. And then you can use something called dependency substitution here, like this. This will say that to Gradle, like, I want to substitute this dependency for whatever locally library I have in this Euphemia folder. And this works great for like testing easy stuff, but it has some drawbacks. And one of the drawbacks that we found was that you need to have the same AGP version on these two libraries. So how can you get around that? One solution is that you can use publish to Maven local. What you do that is that then you can just run this Gradle command, publish to Maven local, and it will make like a local jar into your M2 folder. And then in the applications where you want to test this, you can change the Maven central to Maven local, and it will use this local jar in the M2 folder. So this is also, what did we actually learn and which challenges did we have during the development of this library? One of the things that we noticed was that if you use a custom theme in your previews without setting the loyalty program type, it will crash the preview. This was kind of cool. So we had some previews that looked like this. And it was like you have your some component, and then it was wrapping with the Femia theme, so it looks very correctly. But this will actually crash your previews. The reason for that is that if you go into the theming function that we set, as I showed earlier, this is set to our loyalty program to some default theme service wrapper, which is like an implementation detail, but it actually uses like the a dependency injection to see which type of loyalty program the app actually has set. And in the preview context, you don't have access to the application context of this application, so meaning that you this will actually just crash. So how do you get around that? One of the solutions for this is to use local inspection mode.current. And what this does is that it will return true if you're in a preview context, and then it will return false if you're not. So what we did for that is that we had like our loyalty program function, which returned loyalty program. Then we have like an if statement that checks just local inspection mode current, and then we return like a default loyalty program for that case. Otherwise, we would just get like the team service wrapper like we did before. Also, when starting to build a component library, for us, it was key to have like close conversation with the designers to make sure that you were actually on like the same page. Also, when you do like library development, making APIs in Compose, for us at least, it was nice that it was key to like start strict and then open it more up rather than like starting open, because it was harder to like kind of close up the APIs if the user already was depending on this being loose. And also, lastly, it's important that you don't forget to have fun. I think library development in Compose is very fun, so please don't forget to have fun. Here are also the QR codes.